Okay, so I just want to do a quick video discussing torque specs and proper torquing when you're putting together the primary assembly on a Harley late model. This one happens to be a Milwaukee 8, so it's a little bit different. Like, you'll see that the clutch has 3 bolts in the hub instead of 5 like the later model twin cams do. A few little changes, but all in all it's going to be more or less the same. So one thing I see guys screw up all the time is this is not a bolt, it's not a nut. It may be there to hold this bolt. Like I said, I'm not really sure the purpose, but I see guys hammering on this all the time trying to get their compensators off. That's not going to happen. You got to take the bolt that's in the center out. On the older style like these, it's a hex bolt. I believe it's like a 5/8 or something like that. Maybe it's a metric, but on these, with this style, it's going to be a T70. So you're going to have to get a socket like this. I got mine at Napa. It's a Torque 70. And then the other thing I see is on the clutch nut. This clutch nut's reverse thread, so it spins the opposite direction, and it is metric. You need a 30mm socket in order to tighten that down. And then even on the twin cams too, the slipper plate bolts or the spring retention bolts, whatever you want to call them, are 10mm. So on these, Harley is calling for a 70 to 100 inch-pound torque spec. So typically what I do with Harley stock components is just to keep from running the risk of stripping something out, breaking a bolt off, whatever. I like to split the difference, and that's what I shoot for. So 70 to 100, the difference there is 30 divided by 2 is 15. 15 plus 70 gives me 85 inch-pounds, so that's what I'm shooting for on those, and then I've marked them. That way, if I'm doing a quick service or whatever and I'm peeking through the derby cover and these start backing off, I know I've got an issue. I need to get in there and see what's going on. I will do the same with my clutch hub nut, and I will do the same with my compensator bolt. So on the clutch hub nut, it's 70 to 80 foot-pounds is what they call for. So typically I shoot for 75, just like we just discussed. That's pretty standard. As far as I know, it's almost always been 75 foot-pounds, even back to the Evo days, maybe even back to the Shovelhead days. I don't work on a whole lot of those, but I know that's pretty standard. I believe this 30mm nut came in around the time that the 6-speed transmission was introduced, but don't quote me on that. So your inner primary bolts, they're going to ask for 26 to 28. I usually do about 25 foot-pounds, and then I put some of the Moto seal behind them just to make sure those O-rings seal. Same with my tensioner bolts. I usually torque those to 25, and then before I remove this, I'll always stick a screwdriver in here and fish a zip tie through to use to compress it. Makes it a lot easier to get it in and out. A guy doesn't have to worry about messing with trying to compress it once you're putting it all back together. Then on your compensator, this is where I see most of the mistakes people make, is they want to use an impact on this because the torque spec's so high and they don't have a way to hold this. You need to get the proper holding tool, or you need to take it to somebody that has it. Do not use an impact to tighten this. I've seen guys run this bolt down way too tight. It puts too much pressure on the crank inside of there. It'll take the bearings out in the cases. It'll take the bearings out inside the rods. It's not a good deal. Seen guys run this down with an impact. Next thing you know, they ride their bike 100 or so miles and the bottom end's out. What Harley wants on this particular compensator setup, and you'll have to check because it changes from year to year, you need to make sure you're using the right spec. But on this one, it's 100 foot-pounds, back it off a half turn, and then tighten it to 175. It's very important that you use Loctite on both this bolt and on your clutch nut. That helps keep them retained when you hit that proper torque, because if you don't hit the proper torque, you're going to have problems. I use Loctite 271, and it's red Loctite. That should work, and that's what you need. So remember, 100, back off half a turn, 175. These bolts are 25. The spec's actually 26 to 28. 70 to 100 inch-pounds, and then 75 foot-pounds on your reverse thread clutch nut. Thanks.